Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 10th meeting of the Legislative Commission. This afternoon, we have our members attending at the Legislative Building in Carson City because we are in session. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Backus? Assemblyman DeLong? Present. Assemblywoman Hanson? Here. Assemblywoman Howdeggy? Here. Assemblyman Miller? Here. Senator Cannizzaro? Senator Daly? Here. Senator Hanson? Here. Senator Harris? Here. Senator Krasner? Senator Stone? Here. Chair Yeager.
I am here. Would you please mark Senator Cannizzaro and Senator Krasner present when they arrive? I expect them to be here shortly, but things are a little bit hectic in the building. At any rate, we do have a quorum this afternoon. Just a few quick housekeeping matters to keep in mind. If you are testifying today, if you could state and spell your name for the record before testifying, that will improve the lives of those keeping our committee minutes. And then if anybody would like to receive a copy of the committee's agendas, minutes, or reports, you may be added to our mailing list by following the links on the legislature's website or by providing information to our staff. In addition, we accept written comments, which may be emailed or mailed before, during, or after the meeting. Information regarding where to send those comments is listed on the website and also listed on the agenda for this meeting. Our next item on the agenda is item 2, public comment. We will be accepting public comment from persons here in the Legislative Building in Carson City, and then Grant Sawyer, and then also folks on the phone. There will be a second period of public comment at the end of the meeting, so if you'd like to hold your public comment till the end, you can do that as well. We are going to limit public comment to 2 minutes, and I am going to time just to be fair. And whatever your position is, I will tell you when you reach your 2 minutes and ask you to please wrap up. And due to time constraints, we are going to be limiting the total time limit of public comment to 30 minutes at the beginning of the meeting and 30 minutes at the end of the meeting. And I'll try to alternate among the Legislative Building, Grant Sawyer, and the phones. So with that being said, if anyone would like to give public comment here in Carson City, if you'd like to make your way to the table, please, and whenever you are ready, please begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Yeager, members of the Legislative Commission. For the record, Paul Moratkin, Senior Vice President of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is opposed to Regulation 053-20. As many of you know, the Chamber and many of its trade association partners continue to have significant concerns with these proposed regulations since they were first brought up in 2020 and the broadness of the regulations and what it's trying to solve. We have stated the broadness cannot be applied to all industries, and the solution is to develop regulations specific to each industry. The last time it was discussed under the previous Legislative Commission was 2021-2021, and those concerns have remained to this day. This regulation in front of you has not been adjusted or amended since the last meeting 18 months ago. As we have previously stated, these broad regulations on labor conditions are not simple, and attempting to have one uniform approach for Nevada is not feasible from the Chamber's perspective. We believe these regulations will be complicated, burdensome, and confusing because each industry is different and will need to respond differently to properly comply. We do question the components of the provisions regarding the personal risk factors for heat illness and how employers are supposed to address the degree of acclimatization, health, consumption of water, consumption of alcohol, consumption of caffeine, and the use of prescription medications from the employee perspective. In all reality, we do not know how we will regulate personal behavior and decisions that happen off the clock or how to obtain such information from employees or to train them. It's also important, as many of you know, that the federal OSHA is currently in the rulemaking process regarding heat mitigation standards, and we have previously had conversations in SB 427. Federal OSHA is actively working on the development of these new standards. Also, many times, collective bargaining agreements address worker safety conditions that are negotiated specifically as industry. That is why the Chamber believes that such a wide approach will not work as drafted and will need to develop specific industry regulations. We believe that solution is directly work with OSHA to work with the business community to address industry-specific regulations and bring it back to this body approval. We are asking for that, and we will make that commitment to resolve those concerns on industry level one by one. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you, Mr. Moratkin. That was exactly 2 minutes. So you are a pro at this point of session. Whoever would like to go next, please.
Mr. Chair, Jesse Wadhams with the law firm of Black & Wadhams, here also representing Vegas Chamber. Wanted to express some of the procedural due process concerns we have with Regulation 053-20. That regulation was sent to LCB for initial drafting May 1st of 2020, 3 years ago. The regulation was adopted by Nevada OSHA on October of 2021, and the Legislative Commission reviewed the regulation December 21st, 2021, 527 days ago. Article 3, Section 1, Subsection 2 of the Nevada Constitution and NRS 233B 0675 obviously provide for Legislative Commission to review regulations to determine conformity with the grant of authority given to the agency. And it was stated in December of 2021 that Legislative Commission would defer action to hopefully the next January 2022 meeting. Obviously, deferral of a regulation under any definition of equity and latches does not mean 527 days. NRS 233B gives a number of additional provisions which indicate that the regulation would have expired by limitation. For instance, NRS 233B 040 sub 4, requiring the agency to finalize adoption within 2 years of the initial submission. NRS 233B 0673, the Legislative Commission was required to review the regulation at its next scheduled meeting. Equity would certainly dictate that the next meeting is not 17 months later. And arguably, 233B 067 sub 6, the action to defer, expired with the appointment of a new Legislative Commission, particularly when looked at with NRS 218E 150 sub 4A, mandating that the Legislative Commission expired by limitation after the general election, which was 205 days ago.
Mr. Wadhams, you are at your 2 minutes.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Who'd like to go next?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Brian Wachter, BRYANWACHTER, Senior Vice President of the Retail Association of Nevada. This regulation, while well-intentioned, imposes a significant and administrative and financial burden on employers, especially small businesses, which may not have the resources to implement the very detailed program trainings and monitoring systems that are required. This is going to discourage job creation and business growth in Nevada. The regulation requires employers to monitor personal risk factors for heat illness, including age, health, prescription medication abuse, nicotine use, caffeine use, and alcohol use. This invasive requirement can be seen as a breach of an employee's privacy rights and could result in potential legal ramifications. The requirement for employers to monitor the acclimatization of employees could lead to subjective assessments, resulting in a potential misuse or misinterpretation, which is also going to impact employees and employers. Businesses that depend on outdoor labor, such as agriculture and construction, will be significantly impacted by this regulation, especially for our small businesses who engage in that kind of work, where they do not control the premises, the property. Think a landscaper who goes to your house in order to conduct certain services. They're not responsible, nor they have the ability to make changes to your physical surroundings, and that's going to be difficult. While training on heat illness is important, it's not clear whether mandatory training for all employees is the most efficient way to address the issue, and a more targeted approach could certainly be potentially more effective and less resource intensive. And lastly, the regulation mandates employers are to ensure that emergency responders can reach the work site. While safety is paramount, it's arguable whether this responsibility should lie with employers rather than our public services. We believe passing this regulation, as broad and ill-defined as it is going to cause significant impact to Nevada's small businesses, and for that reason, we urge you to decline.
Thank you, Mr. Wachter. Again, exactly 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Ms. T. Grimmer, representing the Nevada Resort Association. I won't repeat a lot of what Mr. Muradkin and the others have said, but we do have the same concerns about the broadness of this reg, and that it applies both indoor and outdoor as far as we can read it. There are several things in there. As they mentioned, the personal risk factor and how we are supposed to determine that is very much in question. There's a couple of other things. One of the things the reg dictates is that you monitor the employee for the first 14 days I'm not sure what happens after that 14 days if it appears that the employee can't do the job. So that's a question in our minds. Another thing is determining when an employee might sweat more than normal. I'm not sure how we're supposed to factor things like that into our day-to-day operations. And I would also, and I think I need to go back to my people, including and get more information on this, but also with respect to how this reg would interact with our CBAs, because a lot of this is negotiated in our CBAs and the safety measures that go with those. So we're more than happy to sit with the agency and really work on this. It does need to be, it does need to have some consideration for different types of businesses. So we would encourage you to decline this reg at this point and send us back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Josh Hicks with McDonald Carano on behalf of the Nevada Home Builders Association, composed of the Southern Nevada Home Builders Association and the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. The home building industry has been building homes in Nevada's hot climate for a long time and know how to manage heat. When we went through the regulatory process that you've heard about in this reg, we received data from OSHA with respect to heat illness complaints. In the construction industry, they received 30 heat-related complaints over a five-year period. So that's 6 per year on average. During that same 5-year period, the construction industry had 453,733 workers, or an average of 90,745 per year. When you take the 6 incidents per year against the 90,745 workers, you get an incidence rate of 0.000067. The opposition today is not because of a disregard for heat mitigation or the seriousness of it. It's actually the contrary. Heat mitigation is something this industry is familiar with and has done a very good job in managing over the years. The low incidence rate I just talked about bears that out. Nevada employers are already required by law, state and federal, to provide a safe workplace, including the provision of drinking water. Bad actors can already be investigated and punished, but this regulation we see as unnecessary for the vast majority of good actors and only creates unneeded compliance challenges. We urge your opposition. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Paul Enos. I'm the CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association, and we're here today to oppose Regulation 053-20 for many of the same reasons that have been stated by our friends Mr. Wadhams and Mr. Muradkin with the Las Vegas Chamber. Trucking industry is very diverse, and our employees are remote. Trying to monitor what is happening to that driver who is out on a route who you may not see for days at a time is extremely difficult. Monitoring prescriptions, alcohol, caffeine intake, those are all difficult things for us to do too. So we do feel like a better course of action would be working with OSHA to require a plan for companies to make sure that their employees are taken care of and they aren't going to succumb to heat illness, that we do require that plan. But then having OSHA provide some guidance, because we're a very diverse industry. I have some companies that are very sophisticated that design their uniforms to have cool tech fabric. And then I have other folks who have 1 or 2 trucks that are going to need some of that guidance and help from OSHA. So I'd appreciate moving in that direction more so than where we are today. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Tom Clark. I'm here on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce. I'm not going to belabor a lot of the issues that were already brought forward today. I'll keep it way under my 2 minutes. Say ditto, specifically the issues that Mr. Wadhams brought forward as far as how this regulation was promulgated and brought forward to you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Legislative Commission. For the record, my name is Mac Bybee. I'm here to represent the Associated Builders and Contractors of Nevada. Look, safety on the construction job site is paramount, and ensuring the safest work environment possible is critical to having a strong workforce and a successful company. I've participated in the workshops with OSHA when they were occurring, and this regulation as put forward, 05320, wasn't quite there, wasn't quite to the place where there was a consensus spot to it. And there was a reason it was deferred, and that was for that reason. We were supposed to go back and continue to work on it. Those meetings never occurred. The reality is that OSHA has the authority to regulate heat illness under their general duty clause. Heat is a known hazard in the construction industry, and therefore is a hazard that is regulated by OSHA under that provision of the law. The construction industry has developed best practices, and we should adhere to those practices when developing regulation that construction is going to be subjected to. For this reason, I request that this committee turn down these regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good to see you. For the record, Trey Abney, representing the 2,000 member businesses of NFIB in Nevada, National Federation of Independent Business. I usually have a lot of profound things to say. I will shorten this up considerably, say ditto and me too. Certainly a broad-based regulation like this does not fit for the 2,000 member businesses of my organization that are in every kind of industry in this state. So we urge you to not process this regulation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good afternoon, Chair Yeager and committee members. Lindsay Knox with McDonald-Carano, here representing the Nevada Restaurant Association. Throughout Nevada, restaurants and food service outlets employ almost 220,000 Nevadans. Over the last 5 years, specific to the restaurant and food service outlets, 202 complaints were filed, equaling 0.009% of all our employees. Our belief is that a heat mitigation regulation cannot be a blanket policy, but must instead be industry-specific. We ask that this regulation be tabled and allow stakeholders, along with OSHA, to work on industry-specific heat mitigation regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Committee. Thank you. For the record, I'm Terry Graves, representing the Nevada Manufacturing Association, and I concur with the comments that have been made about specifics to the reg. I would just like to remind the committee that coming out of the pandemic, this country realized it has some serious risks to its supply chain for critical products and materials. And there's been a couple of bills and this regulation that seem more to impede the opportunity for this country to start repatriating some of our supply chains in terms of critical materials and goods, and bring manufacturing back into the country that has been exported in past years. To that end, we need to bring these, we need to provide policy that expedites the return of these manufacturing facilities, not impede them, and therefore we are in opposition to this reg. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Speaker Yeager, members of the commission. Andrew McKay, Executive Director with the Nevada Franchised Auto Dealers Association, for the record. Not to belabor many of the points that have already been made by my colleagues, but we are opposed to Regulation 053-20. We're opposed to it on several fronts, but primarily because of the fact that it's simply too prescriptive. We believe that the best approach to this is that the division issue industry-specific guidance. A one-size-fits-all approach is simply, in my humble opinion, not the way to go about it. With respect to the personal risk factors in Section 5, quite honestly, to dovetail off of what I just said, we think it's going to be virtually impossible to monitor some of those things. How do we do it? And are we getting our members set up in a trick bag? Again, respectfully, we request that the Commission either take no action on this regulation or reject it in its outright. However, in closing, Mr. Speaker, I want to put it on the record that we'll commit to working with the division over the interim on this thing and hopefully find a potential resolution to it. So thank you for your time, and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the committee, Warren Hardy, representing the Nevada Urban Consortium today, which is made up of the cities of Las Vegas, Henderson, Reno, Sparks, and North Las Vegas. We have a little bit different take. Our concerns with the bill come from Section 7 and 8 primarily, that require us to really control the environment of the workplace. That's a very difficult thing to do for us with relation to public safety, with police and firefighters. It's almost impossible to control the environment that these individuals are working in. In addition to that, I think we have very strong best practices and procedures in place for those industries. And in the legislation that came forward this session, the public safety were immediately exempted from the bill because of all these concerns. So we would like to work with OSHA and others to promulgate regulation that takes those factors into account. And unfortunately, I don't think the regulation before you does today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alexis Motorex with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors. I'm going to break this up a little bit. We are neutral on the proposed regs 053-20. We appreciated participating in the regulatory process a couple of years ago. The changes made from the original language got us to neutral then, and it's where we remain today. We were also involved in the conversations on SB 427 that dealt with similar subject matter and included provisions for poor air quality. It did not succeed, but we do hope to be able to work with OSHA and other stakeholders on regulations to address poor air quality due to wildfire smoke in northern Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Glenn Levitt with the Nevada Contractors Association. The NCA contractors have been building in Nevada, primarily in southern Nevada, for 70 plus years, and not only recognize but respect that Las Vegas in particular is a desert climate and prone to extreme heat conditions. Contractors around our state have already implemented safety programs that include, address, and prevent heat hazards caused by heat illness. There's no all-encompassing, one-size-fits-all method for mitigating the potential hazards posed by heat exposure. Each business is capable of conducting their own hazard assessment and job safety analysis as they do for other hazards. Under the guidance of OSHA, we would respectfully ask you to decline this measure. Thank you.
Chair and members of the Legislative Commission, my name is Serena Kasama, and I am here on behalf of the Mechanical Contractors Association of Las Vegas and the Sheet Metal and Air Conditioning Contractors National Association of Southern Nevada. We are opposed to Regulation 51-20. MCA and SMACNA employers have been building Las Vegas for 70 plus years and not only recognize but respect that Southern Nevada is a desert climate and thereby prone to these extreme heats that we see. Safety is and should always be first in the construction industry. Our employers have prioritized safety accordingly by making it a seamless part of their company cultures. Our workers are everything to the successful delivery of a construction project. Therefore, ensuring every construction worker returns home safe every night is non-negotiable for us. With that in mind, though, we ask for more time and consideration for a regulation of this nature. We are asking that you support our efforts in giving all parties additional time to develop the safety regulation. Thank you.
Chair Yeager, members of the Legislative Commission, my name is Jake Matthews, and I'm here on behalf of the Southern Nevada chapter of the National Electrical Contractors Association. We are opposed to Regulation 053-20 and agree with the comments previously stated. We are asking that you support our efforts in giving all parties additional time to develop the safety regulation. Thank you.
Chair Yeager, Peter Kruger on behalf of the Nevada Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Store Association. Like the others, Section 8 give us pause, and we did participate in the entire process 2 years ago to try to come to some understanding regs. But our concern is this piece about industry specific. The petroleum industry is different than most of the other industries. We deal with volatile fuels in rail cars, in transportation, in tanks that hold hundreds of thousands of gallons. And the requirements of handling, moving, and just generally operating in that environment preclude some of the specificity that is spelled out in 53-02. So therefore, we, like many of the others, believe that this needs to be reworked, and we are committed to continue that process. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commission members. Nick Vanderpool with Flint Judici Government Affairs on behalf of NNDA and its membership. Echo a lot of what my colleagues have said, and NNDA's membership is very diverse, everything from construction to manufacturing, and to the points that were made, this regulation is not a one-size-fits-all, and we look forward to hopefully working with OSHA in the interim. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. John Lelu here representing NAOP and its 700 members of the commercial development industry statewide. I normally would have something profound to say today, not so much. I'll just thank my colleagues testifying in opposition and echo their comments. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Collins, and I represent the National Electrical Contractors Association of Northern Nevada. We commit to working during the interim on these regs, but right now we stand opposed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Legislative Commission. Bradley Mayer from Argenta Partners, representing Nevada Builders Alliance today. We're the largest trade organization in the state. You've heard all the detailed concerns about Regulation 53-20. We too share those concerns, and we would ask you to not adopt this regulation, and we are opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else coming forward in Carson City, I have been informed that we do not have a feed to Las Vegas due to the condition of the Grant Sawyer building. Specifically, the elevator's not working again. So BPS, can we go to the phone lines to see if there is anyone on the phone who'd like to give public comment, please?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to join the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the Commission. My name is Emily Osterberg, and I'm calling on behalf of the Henderson Chamber of Commerce and our over 1,800 members, most of which are small businesses. We are also opposed to this regulation, 053-20. We agree with the sentiments previously stated in opposition. We believe that employee safety should be a priority, but that the broad language of this regulation will have a negative effect on numerous businesses throughout the state of Nevada. So for this reason and the previous ones mentioned, we are also in opposition to this regulation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comment. VPS, are there any other callers?
There are no additional callers for public comment at this time.
Thank you so much, BPS, and thank you to all who provided public comment, and mostly everyone kept it within 2 minutes other than Mr. Wadhams, I believe. So I want to say thank you for that, because there's a lot going on in the building, and appreciate your ability to keep the comments brief and all the dittos that came in there. And again, as a reminder, we'll have public comment at the end of the agenda as well. That does complete agenda item number 2. We'll go to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the minutes. Committee members, commission members, you will have found in your packet the draft minutes of the March 1st, 2023 Legislative Commission meeting. I just forgot that we had a meeting during session, that was all. So I guess we did have a meeting during session, March 1st, 2023. So the draft minutes are available on the website as well. I'll first ask, is there any discussion or corrections of the minutes? And if I don't see that, I would accept a motion to approve the minutes of the March 1st, 2023 meeting. So moved, Chair. Have a motion from Assemblywoman Howdigi. Have a second from Senator Harris. And is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The minutes for the March 1st, 2023 Legislative Commission meeting are approved. That takes us to agenda item number 4. Mr. Sever, it is your time to shine once again in the Legislative Commission. So this is our court-mandated status report regarding the Nevada Department of Motor Vehicles Technology Fee Refund Project. Thanks for being here this afternoon. We'll give you a chance to present, and then members will have a chance for questions.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. Appreciate the opportunity to update you on our tech fee refund project, which I'm happy to report is almost complete. Through yesterday, the DMV has distributed more than $1.95 million of the $6 million in refunds available. The DMV issued 61,005 refund checks to businesses on February 22nd of last year for a total of almost $2.2 million. As of May 31st, yesterday, 44,887 of those refunds have cleared for more than $1.6 million, or 74%. More than $3.8 million in cash refunds were made available to the public in our offices on April 4th of last year. As of yesterday, 444,000 of those refunds have been issued for more than $333,000, or 8.73%. Throughout this project, many of the customers have indicated they are not interested in receiving their refund and have told us to keep it, which is not reflected in these stats. The DMV has conducted a $15,000 advertising campaign, received a lot of media coverage, and has done continuous social media posts to remind customers to get their refunds, and we'll continue those efforts this month. Any refunds remaining after June 30th will revert to the State Highway Fund pursuant to Section 4.7 of Senate Bill 457 of the 2021 legislative session. Thank you for your time today, and I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sever. Any questions for Mr. Sever about the DMV technology fee refund project? You did a great job. I don't see any questions. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So that will take us through agenda item 4 and take us to really what is the heart of the agenda today. That is agenda item number 5, the administrative regulations. We do have legislative counsel with us today to help if we need help with these regulations. So essentially, I know we have some new commission members. So for those of you who are new, this will come as new information. For those of you who have been on the commission before, this will sound familiar. So we have regulations, and what we do typically is we decide ahead of time which regulations would like to be pulled for discussion, and then once we pull those out, we'll take one motion to approve the rest of the regulation. Before we get to that, I wanted to note there are 2 regulations that have been withdrawn from the list, and those are the 2 Secretary of State regulations. So under 2021 regulations, R089-21, Secretary of State, and R106-21, those have been withdrawn from consideration. So those will not be pulled for discussion, nor will they be part of the motion this afternoon. So then let me tell you what I have so far for members that have requested regulations to be pulled for discussion, and we'll just start at the top. So far, R171-20, which is the Board of Medical Examiners, that will be pulled for discussion. The very next one on the list will be as well, R018-21, which is a Secretary of State relating to securities. And then the other one, not surprisingly, that I've asked to have pulled for consideration is on page 3. It's the 2020 regulation R053-20, the Division of Industrial Relations of the Department of Business and Industry, otherwise known as the HEAT regulation. Those are the 3 so far that I've been asked to pull for discussion before. So I want to give other members a chance. Is there anything else that members would like to have pulled individually for discussion and consideration other than those 3? I can't believe we got away with 3 only. Must be late in the session. Now I have to remember how to do the motion on here. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Chair. And I move that the following regulations be approved, Chair. R118-21, R044-22, R120-22, R121-22, R123-22, R125-22, R128-22, R129-22, R169-22, R177-22, R088-20. All regulations besides the 3 that were pulled be approved. I did miss the last one, Chair, R153-22. And that motion included all regulations to be approved besides the 3 that were pooled for discussion and the 2 that were pooled by the Secretary of State.
And Assemblywoman, I think we missed, if you could add to your motion R166-22 as well.
Also that one.
Okay, I'm looking down at legal counsel. I think we got confirmation. It's late in the session. It's late in the day. So we have a motion to approve all those listed regulations, which were essentially all of them, with the exception of the 2 that were withdrawn and the 3 that were pulled for discussion. Do I have a second on that motion? I have a second from Senator Cannizzaro. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. All of those regulations are approved. And that, what we'll do now is start at the top, and we'll consider the remaining 3 regulations one at a time. So we'll go to R171-20. This is a Board of Medical Examiners regulation, and I see we have Ms. Bradley joining us on Zoom. And Senator Daly, I think this was one you had a question on, so we'll go to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is in Section 15, subsection 3. I was looking to get some confirmation regarding the language where the supervision of a physician assistant, that the requirements of this subsection are satisfied as supervising physician spends part of the day at any location where the physician assistant uses telehealth to provide medical services. So can they meet their supervisory responsibilities just using telehealth? And I know there's some language in, I think it's subsection D5D about being able to use telehealth, but I wanted to get clarification that they actually have to physically go there where the physician assistant is at least once a month.
So Senator, this is Sarah Bradley, Deputy Executive Director on behalf of the Nevada State Board of Medical Examiners. The intent is to clarify that if a physician assistant is providing services only by telemedicine, the supervision also may occur by telemedicine. We believe when it says part of a day at any location, that does include a telemedicine location if that's the way. But the intent here is not to allow someone only to be supervised by telemedicine. It's just if that's the way that the physician assistant is providing services. We have physician assistants as well as physicians that are located in other states but licensed here and providing telemedicine services.
Okay, thank you for that. That clears up the one question. So they can do supervision by telehealth only if the physician assistant is only providing telehealth. Okay, next question was in section 18. So I see that a lot of the language that you're deleting there regarding hearing, office panels and that, and a lot of the language in that section, and I believe the following section, are deleting the procedures and some of the information and various things. So if that language is gone, what hearing procedures are you going to utilize? Does it default to something else? Is it another section? Is it going to go to NRS 622 or some other 233B? What is the hearing procedures going to be? How's a person going to know what the ground rules are?
Sarah Bradley, again, for the record. Thank you, Senator, for the question. What we are doing is in 2015, the legislature removed the exemption. So for a very long time, the Nevada State Board of Medical Examiners was exempt from NRS Chapter 622A, which is, I would say, the general procedures for hearings. We were exempt for a very long time. In 2015, the legislature removed that exemption, and so we have been having to follow 622A. So the changes in a lot of this regulation, including Section 18, as well as some of the other changes in this chapter, some of the repealed sections, it's to make it clear that we're going to follow 622A and we're not going to have duplicating procedures in our regulations.
And thank you for the clarification. That's what I was hoping your answer was going to be. I was just curious because you're getting rid of all of those procedures, but it didn't really say anything else. I didn't know that you got put under 622A, which I know is a default area for a lot of different boards and people to look at. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair. If you want a motion, I can make one.
Senator, let me just ask, is there anybody else that has a question on Regulation 171-20? I don't think anyone else has a question. So Senator Daly, if you would like to make a motion, I would accept that motion.
Make a motion to adopt Regulation 171-21, I believe.
-20, I think.
20.
So the motion is to approve Regulation R171-20. Do I have a second? I have a second from Assemblywoman Howdiggy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. R171-20 is adopted, approved. I don't know what the phrase is. It approved? Approved is the official phraseology. It is approved. So we'll go next to the very next regulation that was pulled for discussion, and that is R018-21. That's a regulation from the Secretary of State. So I would call to the table, okay, looks like we have Ms. Houston, who is on Zoom. I think she is our securities expert at the Secretary of State's office. And again, I believe this was Senator Daly who asked that this be pulled. So Senator, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my first question is in Section 26. I got to go to that one. And I believe there's fees that are referenced in there that, so are those fees also in statute and just mirrored in the regulation, or are they only in regulation? Not that I'm against that. I'm just asking if they're only in regulation.
Good afternoon, Senator Daly. Those fees are currently also in statute. What we're doing in this regulation is simply mirroring a model rule that is currently in statute by way of reference, but not spelled out fully and completely. So this is not a brand new fee. It's one that's already in statute.
And thank you. Just wanted to be clear on the record in that. So then the fees that you collect in the statute have to be used for all of these. So there's rules along with what the fees, where they go, whether it reverts to general fund, et cetera, a separate account and all that. I didn't know if that was in regulation, if these were only here. So the next question's in Section 35, subsection 7. I was just looking to get some clarification or wonder why it says on the continuing education, if I got it right, that the administrator may, in his or her discretion, waive the requirements of this section. Why don't we use the words for good cause or whatever? What would be the discretionary point on why they would waive that? I'm sure you have examples, but anyway, was wanting to know why it's just a discretion of one person without having to show good cause.
Certainly, Senator Daly. And let me say my name is Erin Houston. For the record, I'm Deputy Secretary of State for Securities. The reason that language is in this subsection 7 is simply to give a little bit of wiggle room for those people, or I should say registrants, who have taken a class that may have qualified in another state, because this is a model rule that we're adopting from NASDA, the North American Securities Administrators Association, and it's being implemented over, in waves throughout the country. And the classes that are being implemented and that are been accepted in some states may not have already come online here in Nevada. So the purpose behind having this specific sentence is only to allow the administrator the discretion to provide a waiver if they've taken a class in another state that would normally be something that
satisfies Nevada policy, but hasn't been formally adopted by NASA or by FINRA.
And understood, if there were good cause, obviously you're saying that it wouldn't be done just without a reason, just why we don't have the words, right? Not that it's the end of the world, but there should be in there, in my opinion. Last question's in section 39 regarding pre-hearing conference. So in the pre-hearing conference and the language you have, and I don't know if this is new, you can tell me, it's new to the regulation, blue language. But normally, if I don't see the words, I'm going to try to get on the record on what is it that you're trying to accomplish with the pre-hearing conference? Are you trying to have like a settlement? Are you trying to just outline what the issue is prior to a hearing? Because normally in a pre-hearing conference you see, or a settlement conference, you have additional language that says it can't be recorded. Any statements you may make can't be used against you in a subsequent proceeding and various things. So without all of those words in there, I need to have you guys on the record that that's what you're going to do or intend to do. Otherwise, why would anyone attend a pre-hearing conference? I'd show up and sit on my hands.
Thank you, Senator Daley. Again, this is Erin Houston, Deputy Secretary of State for Securities. The intention for the pre-hearing conference is to be similar to a discovery conference in civil litigation or in family litigation. The purpose is simply to provide a mechanism that doesn't currently exist for the administrator or the hearing officer, as sometimes we do have hearing officers that are not the administrator, to invite the parties to the table and allow them to, yes, to discuss settlement, but also to discuss evidentiary issues and what types of evidence they may be disclosing or what may be available to the other party without the formalities of a full settlement or discovery conference as set forth in NRCP.
And I appreciate the answer. Just want to try to get some of that on the record because it's not entirely clear there on what can be done. I know there's several other areas of law that have pre-hearing conferences or settlement conference or whatever you ever want to do. And we have those parameters on there, is that if someone comes to that and only one side's given evidence, it creates an unfair advantage. And I see there that if they have counsel, they have to be present. I understand that. But I wanted to have on the record that somebody says something, if you're in a settlement, and if it goes into that area, that you can't use whatever they said at that pre-hearing conference in a later proceeding. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and people are not going to really participate other than what they absolutely have to do at the minimum.
Certainly, Senator Daley. Erin Houston again for the record. That's certainly our intent, is that this pre-hearing conference would not contain or would not be a place where evidence that's presented or statements that are made could then later be used at hearing, or if the case is somehow appealed and taken to district court, would not be admissible for evidence there as well.
Appreciate your answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, I'd be more comfortable if those words were there, but at least we have it on the record and that's your intent. And I think we can, people, if they listen to any of this stuff or read this stuff, then they'll have at least that comfort. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anybody else, any other commission members have a question on R018-21? I don't see any other questions. Senator Daley, would you like to make a motion?
Would make a motion to approve R018-21.
I have a motion from Senator Daley. I have a second from Assemblywoman Howdiggy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. R018-21 is approved. That takes us to the main attraction of this afternoon's meeting, and that is R 053-20, the Division of Industrial Relations of the Department of Business and Industry. I see we have Ms. Carrion joining us via Zoom, and I imagine we probably have quite a few questions on this one. So who would like to ask a question first? I'm not going to go to Senator Daley first, because we'll start with Senator Hansen.
I'll keep it to a minimum, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker, excuse me. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Needless to say, in public comment, there were a lot of things that were addressed. What I want to do, though, is go back to the need and purpose of the proposed revisions to regulations that you provided. In it, you mentioned that there's an average of 73 worker compensation claims a year. I did a little rough math, and I'm figuring there's at least, just in Clark County, probably in the neighborhood of 750,000 workers. If they do a typical work year, about 270 days, that's over 200 million man days. And out of that, you've got 73 compensation claims. And then even more interesting, you said the industries with the highest number of complaints over this time period were accommodation and food services, retail, trade, and manufacturing. Yet the whole gist of the regulation seems to be towards construction, which doesn't even rank in the top highest numbers. Got a serious one-size-fits-all thing. What I'm wondering, though, is what is the real, why do we have this regulation? If you're 73 claims a year for the state of Nevada out of just Clark County, I'm guessing 750,000 people. I'm sorry, that isn't even like 1/100th of 1/10th of the number of workers actually having a problem. It seems to me we have a regulation that's trying to find a problem rather than trying to solve some serious issue. So I'm just kind of wondering, with only 74 complaints for the state of Nevada, the real need for this regulation.
All right, thank you for that question. Victoria Carrion, for the record, I'm the administrator at the Division of Industrial Relations, and through you, Chair, to Senator Hansen. So we do believe there's a significant amount of underreporting and injuries, but given that this issue of workplace safety standards for heat illness was considered and addressed during the legislative session, what we would like to do is have an opportunity to go back, get more feedback from stakeholders, and bring back a revised regulation to the Legislative Commission for approval. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a surprise. So what you're basically saying is you'd like us to table this at this point and give you an opportunity to go back and revise this regulation?
Victoria Carrion, for the record, that's correct. Thank you, Senator.
Okay, well, I think what you're saying is you want us as a legislative commission to perhaps give you guys an opportunity to review this again. If that's the case, I would be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Ms. Carrion. We are going to be in a brief The commission will come back to order. Given the statement from Ms. Carrion, I'm going to go to Assemblywoman Howdigy to make a motion for the commission's consideration.
Thank you, Chair. I move to object to Regulation R053-20 on the basis that it is not industry-specific.
We have a motion to object to the regulation on the basis that it is not industry-specific. We have a second from Senator Hansen. Before we vote on that motion, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, I'm going to say a couple things just because I have the microphone. So, I chaired this legislative commission since the last interim, and this regulation has been in front of us twice, and I've heard over and over again, and we heard it today, that everyone wants to work together on something. I saw all my best friends in the room today come up to the table and say that. I believe that you are sincere in saying that. We had a piece of legislation that was advanced this session that ultimately did not make it, but also addressed this issue. So I just really want to encourage folks to work on this because it's June 1st today, which means it's going to get really hot really fast. Particularly down in southern Nevada, and I think this is something that is critically important for folks. I understand the concerns that were raised about different industries, but we need to make sure that we're protecting folks. So both to the division and to the folks who testified in public comment or provided public comment in opposition, would just please ask that you work together to try to bring something back to the commission that this commission would be able to adopt. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. That takes us through agenda item number 5, which really might be the fastest we've ever gone through regulations. And I'll tell you, for all of you who are new on the commission, it's never going to happen that fast again. That takes us to agenda item number 6, which is appointment of members to the Commission on Minority Affairs. And we have our LCB director, Ms. Erdos, with us, and I'm going to have her present the items, and then we'll figure out what we want to do with it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Brenda Erdos, you should have in front of you a one-page letter that explains that the Commission on Minority Affairs is asking the Legislative Commission to appoint the 4 members listed there. They do point out that they have 5 vacancies, but one of the vacancies would be a shortened term, and they would prefer to ask you to fill that later. So the action that they are asking you to take today is to appoint Juani Romero, Annabelle Navarro, Nina Gallagher, and Lance West as members of the Minority Affairs Commission today.
Thank you for that, Ms. Erdos. Do members of the commission have any questions or any discussion on this particular item? I don't see any discussion or questions, so do I have a motion to appoint these 4 commissioners? So moved. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Howdigy. I have a second from Senator Cannizzaro. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. The 4 commissioners are appointed. This is my favorite part of the agenda coming up. This is agenda item number 7, election of a brand new chair and vice chair of the Legislative Commission. Members, you have a copy of rule number 11 of your joint standing rules on your desk, and it provides that the chair and vice chair shall be selected at the first meeting of the newly formed Legislative Commission. That is indeed this afternoon's meeting, and they shall serve until his or her successor is appointed following the formation of the next Legislative Commission, which will happen in the 2025 legislative session. So at this time, I'm going to go to Assemblywoman Howdigy, who I believe would like to make a motion.
Thank you, Chair. Chair Speaker. Thank you. I move to nominate Majority Leader Cannizzaro as chair and Senator Harris as vice chair of the 2023-2024 Interim Legislative Commission.
Do I have a second? I have a motion from Assemblywoman Howdigy. I have a second from Senator Daly. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations, Chair and Vice Chair. And seeing that you have your hands full right now, if you don't mind, I'll handle the last item on this agenda as a guest chair for the moment, and that will be our last round of public comment. Is there anybody here in Carson City who would like to give public comment? I don't see anyone coming forward. BPS, could we check the phone lines to see if there's anybody there who'd like to give public comment?
If you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to join the queue. Chair, there are no callers to provide public comment at this moment.
Thank you so much, BPS. Commission members, thank you for being here on what I know is a very busy day. We're down to, I think, 102 hours and some minutes till the end of session. And thank you, of course, to our staff who worked hard to get us here and ready for this meeting. So seeing no other business before the Legislative Commission, this meeting is adjourned.